Travelling to the Faroe Islands is an unforgettable experience, boasting some of the most stunning and unspoilt natural landscapes in the world. In this mini-series, we hope to uncover its rich cultural heritage, explore on land and sea with thrilling activities across some of the 18 breathtaking islands, whilst also providing helpful tips and practical information to have the most amazing 7 days in this unforgettable archipelago. From dramatic cliffs and soaring mountains, to picturesque fjords and cascading waterfalls, the islands offer a feast for the eyes at every turn. The rugged beauty and pristine wilderness make it a paradise for nature lovers and outdoor enthusiasts. Located in the North Atlantic Ocean between Iceland and Norway, the Faroe Islands are a remote and isolated archipelago. This seclusion has preserved the island's authentic charm and cultural traditions, providing visitors with a sense of adventure and discovery. They offer a true escape from the crowds and a chance to immerse yourself in a different way of life. Join us as we share our journey through the wonderful Faroe Islands. Our adventure began at Edinburgh Airport, as this is the only place in the UK from which you can fly using Atlantic Airways, who at the time of filming run 2 flights a week on a Monday and Thursday. For our US viewers, from August 2023, you can go once a week from New York direct to the archipelago. Flights on other airlines operate from Norway, Denmark, France and Iceland. The flight takes an hour and is notorious for being one of the most spectacular for landings due to the unpredictable weather. It's a captain's only landing, and the planes have extra equipment to aid in low visibility touchdowns. Thankfully, we had good weather for our approach and were able to see the stunning coastline of these incredible islands to give us a taste of what was to come. Arrival at this small airport is quick and easy. With only one baggage belt, you won't be waiting long to get your gear and head out to explore. The Faroe Islands are connected by boats, bridges and undersea tunnels. We highly recommend hiring a car and doing so well in advance of your trip for the best price. Whilst you can buy a bus and boat pass at the airport to cover 4 or 7 days, it will seriously slow you down waiting for services that might not quite go to where you want to be. That being said, most villages are accessible by bus, albeit with a possible connection. We used 62N, a local car rental at the terminal. All the main rental car players like Avis, Budget and Enterprise have stands here. 62N were brilliant and the cheapest. They provided us with a brand new car on its first ever outing. We paid 5,065 Danish kroner for the week. You don't need anything more than a basic economy car here. The roads are excellent everywhere, as you can see heading towards the capital Tórshavn, home for the first night of our trip. We crossed from the island of Vágar to Streymoy, the largest and most populated island, using the undersea Vágar tunnel, which is one of 3 that has a toll. A round trip through this one costs 100 Danish kroner, but the price varies. We planned the route of our trip to minimise the use of the toll tunnels and keep costs down. You will pay the hire car company the toll charges when you return the car. Our total was 452 Danish kroner. The 45-minute scenic drive ended in the old town of Tórshavn, which we'll explore properly tomorrow. Before we headed to our hotel, there was just time for a welcome drink at this traditional turf-roofed craft beer bar. Our first night would be in the Hilton Garden Inn, but after that we have some stunning rustic and rural places to stay, like this gorgeous historic home. So stay tuned for those. We have a fun-packed first full day ahead of us, exploring the old town and one of the oldest parliament buildings in the world. We'll head to the National Museum of Tórshavn and wander the amazing open-air museum showcasing an old Faroese farm with its houses, stables and surroundings. If that's not enough, we'll drive to Kirkjubø and see the 3 most significant historical and cultural landmarks on the islands, before heading out to sea for a breathtaking speedboat trip around and inside Hester Island. But before all that, our day starts more calmly with a beautiful walk to the Svartafoss waterfall. With scenery that I can only describe as the Shire from The Lord of the Rings. Hard to believe that this idyllic location is just outside the centre of Tórshavn. Tórshavn is the capital and largest city of the Faroe Islands, an autonomous territory since 1948 within the Kingdom of Denmark. The history of Tórshavn dates back to the Viking Age, and it has since grown into a significant cultural, political and economic centre for the Faroe Islands. Whilst it has its modern side, we were more interested in where it all began, walking around the old town known locally as Tinganes. From the Viking Age, the old town was where the local chiefs gathered to discuss and resolve legal and political matters, something that continues today with many government offices still located here, making it one of the oldest parliamentary meeting sites in the world. There are a number of quaint, traditional, turf-roofed homes positioned haphazardly on the side of the hill, with winding lanes to explore. Just spare a thought for the locals, this is not a museum. They live here, so try not to disturb their privacy wandering too deeply around their properties. The most important export of the islands is fish, closely followed by woolen clothing and music. If you plan to do any shopping during your visit, then Tórshavn is probably the best place to do this, as you will find little in other towns or villages where tourist shops are non-existent. Whilst credit cards are widely accepted, cash is sometimes needed, and again ATMs are few and far between, so plan ahead. Faroese krona is the local currency, although Danish krona is also accepted. The harbour is where you'll arrive on the Smyril Line ferry from Denmark, a crossing that takes 36 hours, or from Iceland in 19 hours. Overlooking the harbour is Skansin, a historic defensive fort built in 1580 by Magnus Heinason, a Faroese naval hero, to defend the capital against pirate attacks and foreign invasions. During World War II, the islands were occupied by British forces to prevent a German invasion. Tórshavn became an important naval base and a centre for communication between Allied forces in the North Atlantic. A 5-minute drive from the centre is the Faroese National Museum, which comprises of an indoor and open-air museum. Amongst the cultural treasures in the exhibition, you'll find the original Faroese rowing boats, a variety of national costumes, and interesting findings from the Viking era. It also showcases the natural and geological history of the Faroe Islands, with its mammal and bird life and the volcanic geological origin of the islands. The open-air museum is situated in a beautiful green valley within a short walking distance from the National Museum. Here you can experience an old Faroese farm with its houses, stables and surroundings. The scenery was just stunning, with the sheep grazing along this coastal wonder. Due to the Faroes' unique geographic and climatic conditions, agricultural activities and large-scale crop cultivation is a challenge. This has, however, contributed to the preservation of its natural beauty and pristine landscapes. The old farmhouse dates from 1812, and you can wander around the rooms and get a feel for what life was like during that period. The two museums gave us a wonderful insight into the culture and life of the Faroese people. We highly recommend you visit. Driving for 15 minutes south of Tórshavn is the village of Kirkjubø, where you find 3 significant historical buildings not to be missed. Røykstofan, if that's how you pronounce it, is considered one of the oldest inhabited wood houses in the world, dating back to the 11th century and continuously lived in. From the 15th century to this very day, that would be the Patterson family. 17 generations looking after this wonderful farm, which is still a working farm today. Part of the building is open for viewing, but sadly we were too late in the day to have a look inside. As the Faroese have no indigenous trees, it's believed the timber frame was made from driftwood that arrived from Norway washing up on the shore. St Olav's Church dates back to the 12th century and is the oldest preserved wooden church on the Faroe Islands and one of the oldest in Northern Europe. Amazingly, it's still in use today. Until the Reformation, it was the seat of the Catholic bishop. The last of the historic buildings are the ruins of Magnus Cathedral, which was built in the 12th century and may or may not have ever been completed. Researchers are still debating this, although recent discoveries suggest it was roofed and in use at some point. It's the largest medieval building in the Faroe Islands. When the diocese was abolished following the Reformation in 1537, the cathedral was left to decay, leaving us with these ruins today. A few minutes' drive from Kjøtborg is a ferry port that transports locals and visitors to the island of Sandoy, as it's one of the few not linked by the undersea tunnels. The port was our meeting point for a thrilling and breathtaking boat ride to the nearby island of Hesta. Having got kitted out with waterproof thermal clothing and a quick safety briefing, Will and I, along with 10 other adventurers, were whisked across the icy cold Atlantic to the island.
Oh my god. That's very cool.
This is the only village on Hesta, and it has just 14 inhabitants left. At the beginning of the 20th century, approximately 120 people lived here. In 1919, a fishing accident resulted in the deaths of 1/3 of the Hesta's men. For the next hour and a half, we would navigate around the island, getting up close to the wildlife and the towering cliffs. During this breathtaking ride, if the weather is good, then the boat can enter some of the caves for a close-up and incredible experience. This was one of the highlights of our trip. If you get the chance to come, definitely book this once-in-a-lifetime adventure. With the day all but over, it was time to take our longest drive of the week to the Northern Islands and through the giant Estroy Tunnel, and the most expensive to travel through at 260 Danish kroner one way. The novelty of this tunnel is the only undersea roundabout anywhere in the world. You can avoid the tunnel with a free bridge crossing, but that would have been a large detour for us and not convenient. We are heading for the island of Borðoy, a 1 hour and 10-minute drive, where we have booked one night in a self-catering apartment to explore some of the northern parts of the Faroes. Accommodation choices are few and far between in these remote parts. You may want to consider self-catering as the cost of food and drink in the Faroes is very high and most items are shipped in. Eating out will seriously increase your travel costs. We used a supermarket called Bonus that you will see in the more populated areas and brought ingredients for our evening meals and to make sandwiches for lunches. There are virtually no cafes or restaurants in these locations. Having packed up our gear, we headed out for a morning drive to circumnavigate the small island of Viðoy and the village of Viðaroya, the northernmost settlement in the Faroe Islands. At this viewpoint you can see the north coast, which is marked by Cape Ennisberg, the second highest sea cliff in Europe at 754 metres, 2,474 feet. The area is absolutely spectacular, with its bright white church. In the 17th century, the old church was destroyed in a storm. It's said that part of the cemetery was washed away by the sea. The coffins were recovered and reburied. The current church was built in 1892. In the village you'll only find one small grocery store and the Hotel Noro with its restaurant that serves traditional cuisine. From here you also have views of the mighty northern peaks of Borðoy and Kunoy. Our scenic coastal drive takes us back across onto the island of Bordeaux via a bridge and along a narrow track, probably the only gravel road we experienced during our entire visit. At the end of the pretty drive is the tiny settlement of Meules, on the outermost northern edge of the island. It is one of the oldest settlements, dating back to 1350, and according to folklore was the home of Guthrum, a powerful sorcerer. Between the 1800s and 1980s, the population varied between 10 and 25, living from fishing and farming. Whilst there are still a few houses here, no one lives full-time in the settlement, but visit regularly to tend to the sheep and area. The last permanent villager left in 1992. You will see sheep everywhere on the Faroes. There are 70,000 of them compared to just 55,000 people. We never tired of seeing them on the turf roofs, munching on the more lush grass, showing the newborns how it's all done. Modernisation has come slowly to this tranquil place, with electricity only arriving in the 1970s, and in 1988 it was also one of the last villages to be linked by road. Before that, it was a 6-kilometre walk from the next village. There is a short walk from the village across the boggy ground to a small outbuilding that I believe I read were the remains of a Viking structure. From here you can look across to the island of Vidoy and the village we visited earlier. We still have much to share with you from our adventures on the Faroe Islands. We hope all the tips and recommendations are helpful. Do let us know in the comments. Next time we arrive at the second largest town of the Faroes, Klaksvík, and stay in a super rustic boathouse as our base for 2 days. From here we'll explore the remote island of Kelsøy, only accessible a few times a day by a tiny car ferry, at the risk of being stranded if there's not enough room on the way back. The scenery is awe-inspiring, shared almost entirely with just the sheep. Only 80 residents live on the island, so we'll hardly see another person. The famous hike to the Kalla Lighthouse is a must to really experience the rugged beauty and dramatic vistas. There are legends of the Seal Woman to discover, stunning waterfalls, eerie tunnels to navigate, and a whole lot more. So join us again next week for part 2 of this guide to 7 days in the Faroe Islands. Subscribe now so you don't miss future videos, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching The Memory Seekers.